just make sure that the base around the flower tower is well compacted. As you can imagine, it weighs quite a bit, so you don't want any, it's to subside on one side or whatever. So it really has to be firm on the bottom in order to hold that amount of weight. So go ahead and start to tread your main sprinkler line down to the bottom. As you can see, take your time. You don't want to cross thread this. So basically you can peep in there and you can see from an exploded view here what he's trying to achieve. And you can see the importance of the rebar down there in keeping this dead straight. Now at this stage all you're going to do is hand tighten this on. You see how he's hand tightening it in there? Because you have to remove this at the end of the season. And here you can see the end of the season. The reason for that, when all your flowers are finished, you got to take this apart. Now that's the reason why we use the pliers to connect the center. So something's got to give somewhere. As you can see, it slides right out. So you've used the pliers to connect the center pieces, and you've hand tightened the bottom piece, and that's how easy it is to remove it. And you can see here, there's where you began. Now all this compost, is not going to go to waste. We actually recycle all this back into the projects that we do. You can use it in your veg garden, and you can produce many more wonderful displays with the used compost. Here, when we do large containers, what we do is we fill them halfway with the old compost. However, I would recommend the use of a drench of ban rot if you do that. For any fungal problems. Again, with our petunias, we prefer not to recycle the compost. We've had some issues with some fungal problems with our petunias, and we prefer not to do it. Now here with the flower tower, we always prefer to use fresh compost in them because we're going to, quite a bit of trouble to plant them, and we don't want to have any fungal issues. Not that we would have, but to be safe side, we actually prefer not to do that. So here you're going to install the crossbar, if that's a name we can put on this, and what that is going to do is going to keep that sprinkler head dead center in the middle. You don't want that wobbling all over the place while you're filling up the tower. And as you can see here, he's keeping it in the middle, and use your twisty ties. Try and cut those straight across, not at an angle, or you'll scratch yourself as you fill the tower. I would have preferred him to use, a cross system there where he would have two twisty ties and stopped it from moving back and forth, but he was happy with it. So here we use Pro Mix. That's our preferred choice. Whether it's the HB or the XP, it really doesn't matter. It's becoming difficult to get actually these days. And as you can see, we use a wheelbarrow, which makes our life a little bit easier when we actually want to water this in. Now, as you can see, it's very, very dry, and you're really going to have to get this in condition by soaking it or getting it extremely wet. So it pays to have a spade there to break up all those lumps and get it ready for watering. Now we prefer to use the Orbit wand actually. I really love that wand. And the 0G hose will make your life a lot easier than the old-fashioned green hoses, which I think are a thing of the past. The only thing I would say about these two products is make sure you bring them in for the winter, especially the wand. We've had a little bit of water get stuck in, or not stuck, actually end up in the ball valve, and if it freezes, well, that's the end of it. I mean, they don't really sell any spare parts to that wand, and once they crack, they're pretty much done. So go ahead and water it, and again, take your time on this. You're going to have to put a lot of water in this to get it to the condition that you need it for planting. My guys prefer to use this, the spade, the fork in here to get it all thoroughly wet. And here he's testing it, so he squeezes it, and once he sees a couple of droplets of water coming out of it, he knows he's good to go. So go ahead and remove your bubbler and replace that with that 1/2-inch cap. The reason for that is that you don't want that pail to be hitting the top of that screw and break it off. Not that it's happened to us, but we want to avoid that. because you're going to have quite a few pails of compost to put in there. So go ahead and assemble your little tamping tool. I don't know what other name to call this, but we've had several different contraptions over the years. We had rectangles with nails in them, trying to get in there and compact the compost. But we created this little circle ourselves, and the guys love it because you know, the circle there prevents it from getting tangled up in there, and it gets all around the edges. And any broom, brush, paint, whatever you want to call it, will fit in there. As a word of advice, if you're trying to find that the brush handle or broom handle, you'll find it in the paint department rather than the garden department, because I spend hours looking for that, but eventually find what I was looking for. But the threads are a little different, and it snugs up pretty good. So here he is starting to fill up the tower. You know, go ahead and probably put in maybe 3-4 pails of compost in there, and then start your compacting. Now you want to get all the ways around the edges. This is a very important part. You don't want this tower to sink after it's been put in, or rather, you know, settle too much. You want to get it good and tight in there because you are going to be coming up 5 feet. So go all the ways around, all those little nooks and crannies. Make sure your compost is pressed in all the ways around the edges. And again, take your time. This is going to take quite a bit of time. You know, do like, you know, 6 or 7 pails, add some water helps, you know, for the settlement, and as you go up along until eventually you come to the top. And you know, at this stage you can use your hands, but it's very important that you don't have any settlement after you planted it. So make sure it's good and snug in there, just like you would plant, you know, any plant that you would have that you would be potting up. You don't want any air pockets in there, because if you have air pockets in there, you're going to get settlement and then it's going to dry out. Go ahead and level it, and if you need to make any adjustments, here we put a few shims on the bottom. We were off by a little bit. And get ready to turn on your water. Now at this stage, when you get the little bubbler, the screw can be a little tight in there. So go ahead and open and close it a few times to get it so you can just hand tighten it like that. Remove the cap and put your bubbler on. Actually, don't forget your filter. That filter is very, very important. And again, you're not going to be tightening this too much because you're going to be removing it in the fall. So just hand tighten that in there. Now turn on your sprinkler system. It pays to have a few spare flower pots, you know, so if you don't want to get soaking wet, because you're going to have to do the adjustments on top. Now here I've got the HydroWise, so it's a simple matter of going to my phone, opening the app and turning on the water. There's no running back to the sprinkler box, it's right there on my phone. And adjust the sprinkler, the bubbler head, until you're satisfied. Right about there is right about good. And again, with the app, all you have to do is just go back in and turn the water off. As simple as that. And the beauty of this system, you can be right there, 5 miles down the road or 3,000 miles away. You can now turn on that sprinkler system whenever you need. And that's the convenience. I can't overemphasize the importance of watering.